Well, the roller coaster that is season 2016 continued for Collingwood on Friday night with a bitterly disappointing 19-point loss to the Tigers. I'm Michael Christian, and as always, the Herald Sun's Jay Clark is with me. After the big win against West Coast, mate, it was a bit of a letdown.
You're right about roller coaster, Chris. So Nathan Buckley said this was the worst 3 quarters of the season. I reckon he was dead set right. Look, Richmond, we're always going to give the Pies the opportunity to pressure them, to tackle them. Richmond flipped the ball around, play uncontested. They did that on Friday night. That would have been the plan, but the pressure never came. And so after 118 tackles, I think, last week, back down to 70. And this is big fluctuations between Collingwood's best and worst efforts. Must really frustrate the coaching staff, mate.
Well, just 3 games to go. Now, we're going to look at the game in a bit more detail a bit later, but 3 games to go. What can we do in the next 3 games to try and get something out of the season, Jay?
Yeah, well, let's have a look at this. We know that finals are over, so Rupert Wills permanently on the ball for the rest of the season.
He's been playing on the ball, mate.
But you got to back him in for the rest of the year. I want to see him play the whole game on the ball. He's been terrific. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Michael Hurley said on RSN this morning, Paul Chapman said that Michael Hurley would leave. He's going to talk to every club, I reckon, Chris. So Collingwood has to be one of them. Question mark over Nathan Brown at full back. He can play him back. He can play him forward. What's going to happen with Travis Cloak? Derek Kine and the team must have a chat with Michael Hurley as soon as he gets back from...
Can we get him in for the next 3 weeks, Jay?
Europe, not just yet. Next season. And consistency and effort, that's been the disappointing thing. When Collingwood play well, you see all the tools are there and the attributes are there, but the big fluctuation is this effort. Is Collingwood on or are they off? It's just been a disappointing roller coaster, as you see. So Nathan Buckley's got to set that high benchmark so we see that pressure back. What do you reckon, Chris?
Well, yeah, a couple of thoughts I had. Now, one of them is the small forward. We need to find another defensive forward. All the good teams have got a couple.
That's on the list?
Sorry?
That's still on the list?
One's on the list, and I've got one for you.
Go on.
Josh Smith.
He plays back.
He does play back. I want to see him as a small forward. I want to see him as the next Paul Puopolo.
Oh.
Getting in there, applying the pressure, and that I think has been one of the problems all year, is the ease at which opposition teams have been able to get out of our forward half. And I'd love to see Josh Smith. He's a tackling machine. He's composed when he gets the ball. He can snag perhaps a couple of goals, so I reckon he's the man to try up there. And just the question, what of Corey Galt and Jared Witts? They're playing in the VFL at the moment.
They've been forgotten men.
Corey Galt is a star in every pre-season that we come across. He's only played 2 games this year. I know he's had some injury problems, but do we put him in for the last 3 weeks to see what we've got? Or are his papers stamped? And what about Jared Witts? Only played again 2 games for the season. Do we put him in to try to see what he's got? And with Corey Galt, I just don't know that we've seen enough of him. What we have seen, he's actually showed something. And his injuries have curtailed his senior appearances this year, so maybe an opportunity in the last 3 weeks.
Do you think he can make it?
I think he's got potential, absolutely, yeah. Let's talk about the game on Friday night, and gee, it was disappointing. The captain went down late just when we needed Scott Pendlebury. He hurt his ankles. You can see the time there, 15 minutes to go in the 4th quarter, and it was the time when Richmond started to get on top. There's some serious issues. Let's hope it's not going to keep him out for the rest of the seasons. Of course, Barmy will give his Blackmore's injury update a little later, but it looks unlikely that he'll play this week.
This man's got extraordinary recovery powers. How he gets up from the bashing he cops every week, I think is unbelievable. He's missed 5 games since 2010. Like, he's just the most amazing recovery player of all time. But when you see him limp and show pain and wince and hobble around like that, you know it's pretty serious. Now, I believe there's no break, so been cleared of any major structural damage, but I reckon he's given that ligament a good old tweak. So back to our first point, Rupert Wills. If Scotty Pendlebury misses on Friday night against the Dogs, which I think he will miss, huge chance for Wills to really take that spot. You know, this is the first time since 2005, Chriso.
2005?
Since Pendlebury and Swan haven't played in the same team. That's assuming Pendles misses. First time in 11 years.
Haven't played together.
That's how much he's been a mainstay, Scotty. But I look at that vision, he looks pretty sore. So as good as he does get back up from his injuries, I don't think he'll be playing against the Dogs.
See, that's amazing. That's why we pay you the big bucks on this show.
Well, we've got a great production team here at Collingwood Media to do this sort of goal.
Let's look at the delivery into the forward half. Now, this is one of the areas where Collingwood really struggled in this game on Friday night, and just not having, whether it's composure, but a lot of high bombs that just didn't really give our forwards much of a chance.
So, is it the chicken or the egg here, Chriso? Is it the midfielders' ball use? We see Chalor 66, Maynard 66%, Steele 68, Greenwood 69. So they're not overly high numbers. So was it their ball use, or was it the work of the forwards ahead of the ball?
Well,
which one is it?
Well, it's a bit of both. There's no doubt that in a lot of these cases, the ball coming into the forward 50 is a struggle. There's another example, Jack Crisp kicking it in. It's hit and hope, and the numbers are with the Tigers. And sometimes it's a question of trying to use the numbers around the ball to work the ball deeper into the forward half, and that was just a missed kick from Ben Reid. So I think there's a bit of both, but it's been pretty tough, I reckon, all year to be a Collingwood forward.
How would you score out of 10 Collingwood's ability to kick the footy? So when you look at Hawthorn, say you give them 10 out of 10 for their ball use, what's the capacity of Collingwood's foot skills, do you reckon? Where are they at? Are they 6 out of 10?
Yeah,
7 out of 10?
I reckon probably 6.
Bit of an area of improvement, maybe?
Yeah, no doubt. I think there's, and that's one of the features of Hawthorn's premierships have been the ability to use the ball, and probably that's an area certainly for improvement.
I just think, though, when you listen to Nathan Buckley, he's always great in the press conferences afterwards. He was very strong on the forward line, said they essentially gave the team nothing in the forward pressure and their movement off the ball. So I reckon in the coaches' meetings this week, won't just be the midfield. When you're talking about this forward line connectivity, won't just be the on-baller saying, hey, clean up your kicking. I reckon they're looking at the leading patterns and trying to work out in that forward line how they can make clear leads, present clearly, maybe more comes back. I reckon this is a 50-50 shared responsibility.
Well, I mean, one of the responsibilities of the forwards is to not let the ball come out as easily as it did on Friday night. So let's take a look at the Richmond ball movement. And Richmond shared the ball a lot. They ran in waves and they were able to deliver the ball into their forward half and seemed to be able to find targets. But this is the pressure that we're talking about here with Richmond, being able just to share the ball around, use the ball and find targets, really with no pressure. I mean, you shouldn't be able to play on after taking a mark like that. And this was a hallmark of how Richmond played on Friday night, and we couldn't counter it.
They give you a look at it, don't they? With this sort of ball use, uncontested, they go wide through Hooley, Grigg, Ellis, they run, Martin. It's an uncontested game. And I think at the weekend, Richmond had 145 marks, 310 uncontested possessions, which is just an absolute massive number. Richmond's highest of the season. Now, Nathan Buckley would have planned for this. As we said off the top, they know they were going to ship short, wide, lateral, do all this sort of stuff. It give you the chance, Chriso, to pressure them, force them into mistakes, as you said, and that wasn't there. So, less than, I think, 50 tackles than last week. This was a big cross because when Collingwood plays well, Chriso, that pressure, they are in your face. Yeah. That is the barometer of their performance. And to get this sort of performance, that sort of effort, Marley Williams, a good attempted smother there. In that front half of the ground, there was no pressure. And they just cut through it. And that was really disappointing.
Yeah, it certainly was. Well, one of the bright spots was James Aish, who, since round 14, has averaged over 18 disposals, and certainly his overhead marking, Jay, was an absolute feature on Friday night.
Yeah, that's been the question mark on James Aish, and I think early in the season the footy public was wondering whether he was going to be this. That is such a courageous mark to throw himself. It's only a lightly framed kid in front of that pack like that. He has really impressed me. I reckon he surprised everyone. There was a knock on him, Chriso, that he played an uncontested game style. I reckon all season he's been very courageous, very brave. We saw a couple of examples in the air earlier. And he's been a big tick. He's been one of the silver linings in the second half of the season.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's one of the, as you say, the real positives out of the second half of the season. And he's going to be a player to stay, and he can use the ball beautifully.
Well, what did you think halfway through the year? I was thinking this isn't working.
Oh, no, I've seen him play. When he played at Brisbane, I always had a really high opinion of his ability to play, and it was a bit of a struggle early, but that can sometimes happen when you come to a new club. But I think now that he's settled in, he's really playing some wonderful football.
Well, he went back to the VFL, Chriso.
He did.
And that was probably important for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And he spoke with Collingwood media post-match about his current form and also playing back in the VFL.
I think I was solid for most of the game. Things to work on. I missed a couple of tackles and a few little things during the game, but yeah, the marking was good, just to be able to get a few marks at good times. Yeah, I don't know, overall solid, but just together as a team, you just got to all improve. Yeah, looking back, it was really good. I had a month back there, and I was just able to just relax a bit. I was still playing my role, but I was able to relax and just get a bit of the ball, and that leads to some more confidence. So since I've been back, I've just kept it pretty simple, and I think over the last few weeks especially, I've just sort of built in the games a bit more and had a bit more impact, which has been good. If we can just have a consistent four-quarter effort, we can get 3 wins. So we just have to, I guess, go into games with our plans, which we do every week, but we have to just execute as a team. And personally, I just want to keep improving and keep building a good base and just being consistent.
James Aish there, who's been one of the bright lights.
Yeah, you got to give him credit, because early we criticised him, or I did anyway. I thought his form was really wobbly in the first half of the season. I think you got to acknowledge his very good form. Now, Chris, I know you can't say too much on this because you're a power broker behind the MRP setup, but there was an incident from Friday night's game where our man Travis Varco very courageously goes back with the fight. Unfortunately, sort of cleans up Richmond midfielder Taylor Hunt there. Let's have another look at it. Just hold. You keep watching, Chriso. Varco, eyes for the ball, goes for it. Very courageous. Back with the flight. Gets Hunt in the shoulder and their head area. Taylor Hunt was okay for the rest of the game. Now, Chriso, I tell you what, mate. If you rub out Travis Varco for that, when he had all eyes for the ball, I'm going to ban you from this show next week. I'll give you a 1-week suspension. So if I'm really putting it on you here, if you rub him out in that back page headline, Herald Sun all week, you will be suspended. We'll get a new host.
Like all incidents,
I'll cite you.
It'll be one that will be looked at, and what will be the determining factor was Travis Varco contesting the ball, and we will make that judgment whether he was or wasn't.
I'm telling you, mate.
Go from there.
I will consult the AFL, and I will put out my own press release, and you will be cited, mate.
Well, let's talk about the bit of the VFL, and the boys are on fire at the VFL. 10 in a row, Jay.
Unbelievable.
12 wins and 3 losses, up to third. 3 games to come: Port, Melbourne, Box Hill, and Footscray.
Yep.
So Collingwood Media live streaming the game against Port 1 p.m. on Saturday, Victoria Park. So
it's good signs. When
good signs.
When you got the players underneath. I think even Tyson Goldsack was best on the weekend, so he'll be putting his name up for selection throughout the week.
I'd love to see him back in the team.
Well, you're playing forward or back though. That's always the thing.
Oh, I think at the moment, I suggested Josh Smith might be the man to go forward as the defensive forward, but Tyson Goldsack's done that role before with
tackles,
with great success, and kicked a couple of goals on the way through. So whether a forward, and that adds to the flexibility. He can play forward, he can play back. So I reckon he's someone that they would look to bring in over the next 3 weeks as well. All right, mate, it's time for that special time. It's our Monday moment time, and I'm going to kick it off because this is the man that you've been pumping up all week. His name is Rupert Wills.
Big Rup.
And I just want to show this. The composure he shows here. He gets the ball hard up against the boundary line. Now, he looked to blaze away. Then he just took a second glance, saw James Aish in the goal square, put it on top of his head, and Aish was able to take a fantastic mark. But just Will's composure there, not blazing away, just had that moment, the look, and then directed the kick perfectly.
Yep.
I think he's a young star.
Yeah, I'm glad you're on the big Rupert bandwagon. Chris, so look, for the first time in Collingwood media, the agenda history, we're going with a double Monday moment. We're going with Rupert Wills again. This is how exciting this kid. So in comes the big kick. Oh, high fly, and Rupert, look, he gets hit by a freight train. Griffiths comes through, absolutely smash him. Again, the Collingwood player has his eyes on the ball. That is toughness, that is courage, that is bravery, Chriso. Three very important attributes. So you talk about his skill and decision making. What about the big bloke just jumping in front of Ben Griffiths to get the footy there? Got smashed.
He's got a bit of the Josh Kennedy's about him. Sydney Josh Kennedy.
Toughness.
If he was 3/4 as good as him, well, we'd be all right.
And he comes from the Scotch College system, so he hasn't been in the AFL program for 4 or 5 years. I think, there's a high, big, steep trajectory there.
Friday night, Etihad Stadium, Western Bulldogs, what happens?
Oh, look, the Dogs are absolutely on a roll. They've got a patchwork midfield cobbled together. Bontempelli's the star. North targeted him at the weekend, didn't really work, just sort of fired him up. But on paper, you think there's a chance there for Collingwood's midfield, some bigger names. to get the ascendancy out of the middle. So
Well, let's hope for a big bounce. Friday night, Etihad Stadium against the Bulldogs. Let's hope we're talking next week on the agenda about a big Magpie win.
If you rub Travis Farco out, there'll be trouble. You won't be here. There'll be a cardboard cutout.
See you next week.